I just need to address some of these things because I've seen some of these things on social media and people have said things to me. Let me just clarify, and maybe Jared, you can clarify this too, because I think I got this quote from you when we discussed the general plan a few days ago. Jared's our development services, I don't even know what your title is, planning manager. He's our go-to guy, right, when we have questions about zoning and planning. And I just want to clarify this because people keep talking to me about the general plan, the general plan, the general plan. You just need to understand. Well, do you want to take that one, Jared?
About the general plan?
Yeah, an advisory document, the thing you told me. Yeah.
General plans are advisory documents. There's no, and they are living documents. They get modified, they get changed. We're in the process of updating the general plan right now. Some of these things, some of these lines might be changed. There's no, it is always the first thing we consult looking at zone changes, a planner, a city planner, a career municipal planner. The first question you ask yourself when you see a zone change request come through is, what does the general plan say? But it's not the last question you ask yourself. There are other considerations too. It's not the only thing you consider. So other things are important to think about as well.
And thank you. And, I kind of, while we were talking on the phone, I wrote down what you said, and I'm just going to quote you if you don't mind, because you kind of got it about right. That's about the same.
That's scary.
You said the general plan is an advisory document. It is the best guess, if you will, of the possible direction of development. It often changes. It doesn't have a strong timing element. It doesn't mean it will happen that way. It is a guideline of where the city may go in the future. It is not binding. It is not law. Staff are currently updating our general plan, and kind of the idea there is we update these every 5 years to kind of adjust them for where our city is going, for where the development environment is going. Yeah. Did I quote you correctly there?
I'm going to say, yeah, I'd stand by that statement. That's how general plans work in my estimation.
Okay, awesome. And then would you pull up that map? I told you I wanted you to have that map ready.
I've got a Google aerial up. Will that work, or do you want?
Yes, Google area is fine, because that, I just wanted, this was something else that I saw online. Where's 2000 South? Right there.
Right there.
Okay, so, and I keep hearing this statement about, all around it is zoned, is residential. It's not. Look to the east. Maybe 3 sides of this property is residential, but there's a 4th side. There's 25% that is not zoned residential. And that carries on for pretty much quite consistently along the railroad track. There's some mistakes, I'm going to tell you. There's some developments along there that I think were bad decisions by council members or developers, but for the most part, and that's what I'm going to address right now, okay? First of all, I just want to start off with my comments and just say thank you. Thank you to all of you for your diligence. As the mayor said, this has been going on since December. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you. I'm exhausted by this, but thank you. You shouldn't have to deal with this. I mean, truly, our job as a council is to watch out for you as citizens and represent you when you can't be here, but we are sure grateful when you show up and when you come and tell us what your desires are. I've been in those seats. I ran for city council because I had been in those seats and wanted to change the direction the Orem was going. Everything was going towards increasing density and high density, and I just didn't think that was the direction we wanted Orem to go. So I can empathize with your exhaustion. Thank you for your advocacy, for your engagement, for your caring about your community, about our community. Now, let me talk about a few things. First, let me say what we're not here to discuss today as a council. Some of you have truly understood this, but I wish we were here. We were here to discuss Wilkerson Farm, but we are not. I love Wilkerson Farm. I love that it provides enjoyment and entertainment for the citizens of Orem, especially our children. I've served, I've volunteered, I have supported children in our community for over 25 years. I love that it provided food to Tabitha's Way, a very deserving charity critical to feeding the hungry in our community. I love that it preserves farmland and open spaces in the city of Orem. I wish that we were here to discuss Wilkerson Farm and what we could do to preserve it. I would love to have that conversation. But unfortunately, that's not why we're here. And how I feel about Wilkerson Farm doesn't really matter at this point. Second, I want to address property rights, because I've heard this in our community also. I am a firm believer in and proponent of property rights. However, I also believe that the rights of one property owner should not and cannot infringe upon the rights of property owners around them. As I often say, you'll hear me say, property rights exist on both sides of the fence. So here is where city ordinances and zoning come into play. We enact city ordinances and zoning to protect all property rights of everyone in the city, okay? So these ordinances are in place so that everyone's rights can be protected. A very important part of my job as a city councilwoman is to enact, enforce, and maintain city zoning laws and ordinances in such a way that they protect the rights of all. I'd like to clarify a few things here on this particular situation. This property is zoned OS 5. As correctly stated, OS 5 can be a placeholder. However, it can also be what it is, an open space designation with a low density residential opportunity, a home for every 5 acres, in order to serve as a buffer zone, to serve as open space, to serve as what we saw in that picture all along those railroad tracks. The residential use allows the landowner to develop the property with 1 house for every 5 acres. That's the 5 in the open space 5. An important thing to note is that this landowner purchased the land with the OS 5 zone and has the property right to develop this property according to the current zone. No one's property rights are infringed upon or threatened by him developing the property in that zone. Property owners also have the right to make an application to the city to change their zoning designations. If the city agrees with the application, then the laws are changed and the property owner can do what they would like within those new zoning parameters. If, however, the city does not agree that the property owner, then the property owner does not have the right to do as they wish. A landowner's property rights do not include the right to a property zone change. Again, property rights extend to the current zoning rights assigned to the land. So we're here tonight to decide if we should change this land from open space residential to R8 residential, if that would be suitable for that area and also for our community. Once again, property rights exist on both sides of the fence here. One of my most important responsibilities as city council is regulating and balancing land use in our community and creating opportunities for families to thrive. Another critical part of that decision is asking, is this a safe, hospitable, livable location for housing? I need to ensure that neighborhoods, homeowners, and residents are protected and that proposed zone is appropriate for the area. We don't allow commercial or industrial in the middle of our neighborhoods. Good land use provides buffers and transition zones between uses. So let me define for you what a buffer is, okay? I looked up this land use manual and I really Googled a lot of stuff, but I got this definition out of this manual, okay? These are what the planners use. So a buffer or transition zone is a designated area in a land use plan where development intensity, building types, or land use shifts gradually to minimize conflicts and to create a smooth interface between incompatible zones. For example, from single-family homes to commercial or industrial areas. That definition right there kind of fits what we're talking about tonight. Buffer zones are essential. I recently was talking to a council member from Lehigh, and they have some areas in their city where they have residential next to industrial zones, and they are having serious problems with that right now, with the complaints between the different uses. That's why we do transitional zones and buffer zones. I understand, with that picture, if you want to put that picture up for a second, if you look at this picture, I understand why this land was given the OS5 zone designation. Not only, if you can see, is there a freight train, I don't know if you can point to that, Jared, but there's a freight train and a commuter train noise. There's also an industrial. Do you want to show the industrial portion? There's just a big strip of industrial use and also right next to it. I drove down the gravel road there. It's not very, you have to zoom in more, but I drove down that gravel road between the industrial zone, and I got to tell you, there's heavy equipment, there's large machinery, just shockingly close to where this developer wants to put houses. There's also the, as has been discussed, the Union Pacific train tracks, with ground shaking freight trains that drive by and blow their horns almost nightly. There's the front runner train. I stood next to that where a house is going to sit when a front runner train went by. It was like a tornado. I can't imagine people living next to that noise. As a city council, we recently approved a subdivision right behind my house. So they're putting in the infrastructure there. For the past 3 months, I have had heavy equipment behind my home, starting at 7 a.m., okay? And per our code, it could go until 10 p.m. at some cases. It's loud, it's annoying, it's inhospitable. I can't imagine anyone living next to such a sound-intensive environment every day. Subjecting residents to that type of housing is truly unacceptable to me. It's essential to buffer and transition between these zones and uses and to match zoning and housing opportunities with locations. This subdivision would allow the creation of homes in a substandard, inhospitable location. Some believe that it would most assuredly be rentals. I think renters deserve better. They deserve to have someone looking out for them now before they even move into a home to rent. Our residents deserve quality housing options, and allow housing in such an area with inappropriate zoning is so unacceptable to me. The appropriate residential use for this land is 5-acre ranchettes, its current use. I feel strongly that I must protect future residents from an inhospitable living environment. This development just doesn't fit. The open space zone was wisely put there. It serves as a transitional zone, as we saw on this map. There's no housing to the east, and the buffer zone, like I said, is mainly adhered to up and down north to south. Frankly, it seems to me that maybe with some good marketing management, Wilkerson Farm could be a brilliant use for that property, quite frankly. And because I believe that this zoning request would produce two undesirable results. The first one being, it would remove the necessary and important buffer that the current zoning provides from the freight train and the railroad tracks and the industrial zone. It would also create, as I described, an inhospitable living environment for whoever is going to live there. The current zone appears to me to be appropriate for this land. It was the zone that was in place when the land was purchased. And as I said, you have a right to use your land according to the zone that it has. You do not have a right to a zone change. I will be voting against this rezone request. Thank you.